everybody, welcome to Whip Wednesday Live. I have my whip with me, and I'm really excited to knit with you all tonight. Have a little bit of dedicated knit and chat time. I'm very excited because my whip today is related to a little yarn purchase I made this week. I picked up a few books for my knitting library and I want to share them with you. So that's coming up on the agenda for the evening. I see your hellos coming through. I would love to know what you're working on tonight, where you're knitting from. And not only would I love to know what you're working on tonight, I have a Google form in the description of this video, and it is no pressure, okay? Don't feel pressure, no stress. But if you are interested in sharing a recently finished object or a whip with everybody, you can send me a photo of it through that Google form, and I will pop it up on the screen a little later in our live and share it out with the group. Again, no pressure, you don't have homework tonight, but if you do want to share a little bit of the details of what you're working on, I would love to see them. And although it's really fun to spend time together like this on live, I don't get to see you and I don't get to see what you're working on. So that's a way for me to get to see what you're working on too. So no pressure, you have time. The link is in the description. It's just a simple Google form. Nothing is required. No pressure. So that's out there. You can take a look at that form. And I see people coming through. Hi, everybody. You're live and I can hear you. Thank you, Rachel. If you see me look over here, that's where your comments live. Here are you. Here are your comments. That's the setup. We've got someone coming in from Michigan. Rachel's coming in from Michigan and working on a temperature blanket. I have always wanted to make a temperature blanket. And I'm really kind of curious about how you're making yours. I know that for a temperature blanket, you pick out a range of temperatures, right? And you assign a color to each temperature. And then throughout the year, you assign maybe 1 or 2 rows per day of the year. And then you knit those rows in the color assigned to that temperature. So it's kind of like a visual representation of the weather report of where you live for the entire year. And it winds up being kind of a cool gradient because depending on where you live, the year gets warmer and then it gets colder. So you have a range of colors. I think it's such a fun idea. And I've also seen some cool modifications where people use it to represent the books they read in a year or represent their mood. I saw a mood blanket that was really cool. So I think it's a fun concept. It's a little intimidating for me, to be honest, because it's like committing to knitting a little bit every single day. I know that you can catch up later, but it's a big commitment. So I'm curious to learn more about it. Hi, Toby from Tennessee. Hi, Dawn. Thank you for the compliment on my granny square shoulders. This is a tank top? No, it's a t-shirt pattern. It's called the Geddy Tee, Geddy, Geddy, by Tanis Fiber Arts. And she's been doing these really cool combination crochet and knitting patterns. She had a cardigan pattern. I saw a few of it at Rhinebug last year. Everybody was very excited about it. But again, I was a little intimidated because I never learned how to crochet. So I wasn't going to tackle an entire crochet granny square cardigan. But when I saw this pattern come out, and it was just 4 granny squares, it was like the perfect approachable entry point for me. And I did it back in April. I pushed myself. I learned how to crochet. I made a couple granny squares in a different color scheme. Everyone agreed they didn't look that good. That was okay. That was okay. I started again with these colors and it turned out, I think, really nicely. It was a fun effect. So I think that this is not the last of my crochet adventures. For those of you who were here last week's live, I did wear this last week's live as well. So we talked a little bit about crochet then, but this is my first foray into crochet and I feel very good about it. It made me feel more confident to have it be mostly knitting with just a touch of crochet. Hi, Karen. Karen's coming in from Toronto, coming in on a drop spindle. Wow, I'm really impressed. I do have a drop spindle, but I found it very challenging. And I know that drop is in the name. So you're going to drop it. I know that's part of it. But it was very hard for me to get the hang of, and I never quite got into it. I do also have a spinning wheel, but for a majority of my ownership of that wheel, it hasn't been in the same place as me, because for a long time I was living in New York City in really small dorm rooms and apartments, and there just didn't feel like there was enough physical space for a spinning wheel. But I'd really like to get back into it, and now that chili season is approaching and fiber festival season is approaching, I'm starting to I don't know, I'm thinking about fleeces. So maybe one of these days I'm going to acquire a fleece and then push myself to really like spin it all up on my spinning wheel. I would love to do a full sheep to sweater, but I know it'll take some time to get there. But I admire your drop spindling. Rachel is doing 2 rows a day on a massive temperature blanket. Learn from my mistakes and do smaller squares that you can stitch together. You don't get the gradient that way, but you do keep some sanity. Yeah, that sounds more portable as well. The good and bad thing about a blanket project is once you get to a certain point, it's just no longer portable, and then it becomes a couch project. And so sometimes the progress slows, and sometimes you just end up spending more time on the couch. But I hear you that knitting a blanket or any larger project modularly can help make it more approachable, more portable as well. Toby is working on an all-over lace Faroese shawl by Jackie Erickson Schweitz. I'm going to have to look that pattern up. That sounds incredible. Or if you're able to send a pattern picture through, it doesn't have to be your project necessarily. I can see it through the Google form. That sounds beautiful. I've knit a few all-over lace shawls, and they are massive undertakings. But I actually find them in some ways even more relaxing than stockinette stitch. I don't know if you find this too, Toby, because when I'm knitting stockinette stitch, we can talk, right? Like my hands are busy. It almost feels like a vehicle to enable me to do something else. Like, oh yeah, I'm knitting my garter stitch project and I'm watching a show, or I'm knitting my project and I'm having coffee with a friend. Like I can do this and do something else at the same time. And especially if you're in kind of like a boring meeting or something, this makes the time go faster. It's like, ah, yes, my hands are busy, it keeps me off my phone. But it's not necessarily always a stress buster, because if I can do 2 things at once, if I can knit garter stitch or stockinette stitch and do something else, I can knit stockinette stitch and also stress out. I can do both at the same time. But when I'm knitting an all-over lace project, like a complicated lace shawl, I cannot do that and stress out at the same time. My brain is completely 100% occupied by counting the stitches. And so I think it's very meditative in that way. Like it completely fills my mind and there's no room for anything else. And I find that to be very relaxing. But not every moment in my year and not every season of my life do I feel like I have the capacity to knit that kind of project. But I did knit one many years ago, and then I knit one for a gift for my mom when I got married. That was the gift to my mom for basically planning our whole wedding. Worth it, but a lot of work. I'm very curious to see what you're working on. I'll have to look up the project. Karen says, yes, drop spindling is extremely hard. I'm better on my wheel for sure. Okay, that's consoling to me because I never fully got the hang of it, and it's really impressive. I also love drop spindles. They're so pretty. Like I have to stop myself at sheep and wool festivals because it always looks so nice, and I'm like, ooh, like do I need another drop spindle? The answer is no. I don't use the one I have. I don't need another drop spindle. They're very pretty though. This is my mom. My mom says, I want to start to spin too. Let's do it together. Well, the spinning wheel is at your house, Mom. So maybe we can sit down together and find an online course and practice together. Toby says, lace is TV knitting for me. Color work requires me to pay attention. I'm so impressed by you. I'm very impressed. Truly, I could never. If I tried to watch TV while knitting lace, I think I would be in for a very stressful evening, to be honest with you. Or even a stressful morning, because I wouldn't notice the mistake until the next day. You know that when you've like knit a few rows in the dark watching a show, and then you're like, ah, yes, I made so much progress, feeling so good. And then the next day you sit down and you're like, oh no, what happened? Oh no, something terrible has happened. You have to rip out all your progress. It's terrible. Sets you up for a bad next day. I'm very impressed by your TV lace knitting. Sometimes I can do color work watching TV, but lace, something about the monochromatic nature of it, I just can't see what I'm doing if I'm not focused. Bye, Rachel. It was good to see you. Mel, I enjoy drop spindles, but you're correct. It takes a very long time to get enough for a large project. Yeah, I can only imagine. It's a big commitment. But I'm sure that back in the day, there were people who were like drop spindling so fast. They were shepherding and drop spindling at the same time and just like making wool so quickly. It would take me a long time to get there though. All right, so I'm going to take a pause from the comments and show you a little bit about what I'm working on since it is Whip Wednesday. And this has been my whip for a few weeks, so let me pull it up here. And I'll show you a picture. Here it is. This is aphotic. I've made a lot of progress in a week on this project since the last Whip Wednesday I had. But one thing I really like about this project is that it has the color work up top, and then it echoes that color work. Let me see if I can hold this up better. It echoes that color work in texture on the bottom. I'm not doing a great job. Let's try this. There we go. So this is the same patterning in texture as you see in the top in color work. I just think it's so creative. I haven't seen a project like this one, and as soon as I saw it, it caught my eye. I happened to already have this yarn. I picked it up at the New Jersey Sheep and Wool Festival this past April. It is Retro Rosaria Rosa Pomar Brusca, and it's a very rustic yarn. I actually mentioned this yarn in a recent video I made on 10 wool brands that I feel really good about supporting, so love the brand. Their mission is all about preserving heritage sheep breeds in Portugal. And Portugal is an entirely mulesing-free country, so the yarn is all very ethically and sustainably sourced, mulesing-free, so they're happy sheep, which I like to hear. Really loving this project. And I got down to the bottom hem, and right now I'm working on the first sleeve. But I do have a little bit of a problem because I wouldn't call it full startitis, but I do have perhaps a touch of startitis. And I got a few new knitting books in the mail this week. And when they arrived, I got so excited about one of the patterns inside that I immediately cast it on. So this is not forgotten. It's just set aside. I have another showpiece here. We'll look at that in a second. So the past couple of weeks, I've been spending a lot of time thinking about Elizabeth Zimmerman. Why am I spending so much time thinking about Elizabeth Zimmerman? I think it's because I've been talking to a lot of beginner knitters or more beginner knitters, and I'm always recommending her. Like, she is such a legend of knitting. Elizabeth Zimmerman kind of rose to popularity and fame in the 1970s, and her whole vibe was like, knitting's not that serious. Don't stress. It's all going to be okay. She had very strong knitting big sis energy. And I loved that. So when I first learned how to knit, I purchased this book, Knitting Without Tears, and I knit my first ever sweater out of it. And her patterns are very much more like recipes, and they are more like a recipe that your friend kind of tells you while you're jogging than a recipe you would buy in a recipe book. Just like, yeah, like cast on 160 stitches, like use thicker yarn if you want it to be bigger, use thinner yarn if you want it to be smaller, you'll be fine. Like, very intuitive knitting. And that did give me some issue when I first knit from this book. She was like, cast on 160 stitches, it will be fine. And lo and behold, my sweater did come out far too large. But luckily, over the last 15 years since I knit that sweater, I have gained enough weight that it now fits very well. So Elizabeth Zimmerman, she knew what she was doing, an oracle. So just the energy in her book is so empowering and also relaxing. It's like, oh, this is going to be fine. Like, I can knit for sure. Elizabeth told me I can. Really love that energy. And so I did acquire a few new Elizabeth Zimmerman books this past week, and you might be able to guess which pattern I wound up casting on. Let me just catch up here. Starting my first Musselburgh for the third or fourth time. Wait a second. Musselburgh is, okay. If I love Elizabeth Zimmerman, perhaps the only other knitwear designer who I love equally, or maybe even more, lest I say, alas, more, I can't imagine, but Isolde Teague is amazing. I think she's one of the few truly innovative designers of our time, like truly innovative. She is a genius. She's a genius. And I don't think she gets the acknowledgement she deserves for like the intellectual nature of the way she designs patterns. It's crazy. She's so amazing at pattern design, and the Musselburgh hat is just emblematic of that. And I know she didn't invent the concept of the Musselburgh hat because it was a wartime pattern where soldiers, it was knit. She describes in the pattern that, so for those who don't know, the Musselburgh is a hat. You basically knit the top of a hat and then a long tube and then the top of the hat again. So it's a long sealed oval shaped tube. Oops, let me put this away so you can see my hands. Okay, there we go. Long oval shaped tube. Can you imagine? And then you take this end and you squish it inside the other. So now it's inside out inside. The fabric's doubled. You roll up the hem and it makes a hat. And so during wartime, soldiers would wear these, and it could either be a beanie or they could open it up into a long tube and wear it kind of as like a little scarf, depending on what they needed. It was versatile for wartime. I guess they were out in the elements and they might need different things. But the genius of this pattern is that she, in a different way than Elizabeth Zimmerman does. If Elizabeth Zimmerman was like, make a sweater, thicker yarn, thinner yarn, it's gonna be fine. Isolde says to you, okay, you wanna make a hat? First, cast on at the top of the hat. As you start knitting, you're going to use this as your gauge swatch. When you get to a certain point, you're going to measure how many stitches there are to the inch, and then you're going to use this graph that I'm going to provide to explain exactly what stitch count you need based on the gauge you got, so that you never need to knit a gauge swatch, get the perfect size every time, can use whatever yarn and needle combination you want. This is incredible. This is like, no other knitwear designer is really doing this right now. If you know another knitwear designer who's doing this, please tell me, because I'm wowed by Isolde, and I haven't seen anybody else on this level before in our current time, other than like the Elizabeth Zimmermans, the Barbara Walkers, like the legends of knitting. So the Musselburgh hat, you're going to have a really good time, and I think it showcases special yarns in a really beautiful way, and it's a very wearable hat. I'm excited for you. If you can't tell, I'm excited for you. The Musselburgh is one of my favorite patterns. I think it's so genius. Pie shells forever. Yes, Elizabeth Zimmerman, another one of Elizabeth Zimmerman's famous patterns. I'm a handwriting without tears stan. I should get that book despite not being much of a beginner. Handwriting without tears? I have more questions. I'm not familiar. Blair is here. Hi, Blair. Blair was in the comment section and was watching last week and talking to me about crochet. And then I saw that Blair has her own YouTube channel. I was watching her tutorials and they are excellent. I'm so impressed. And you know what, Blair, really impresses me? I am a teacher, and I worked with students who were like middle schoolers and high schoolers, and I always told my students, they would say they wanted like to make YouTube videos, and I'd be like, great, like make YouTube videos, you know, you can do it right now. But then a lot of them would be like, no, I can't. So I'm very impressed that you are actually making videos. I think that is so awesome, and the quality and the content, very top notch. I really enjoyed your Woobles review. It helped me understand what was in the package. Bravo, you're doing a great job. Keep it up. Karen, that's a cool sweater. Thank you. In this book, in Knitting Without Tears, Mel G says there is a tip about making a double hat with a long tube as well as a scarf that you can turn into a hat with pushing the end inside. You know what? Elizabeth Zimmerman would have come up with something like that. She's so amazing. And I wouldn't be surprised if Isolde was also inspired by Elizabeth Zimmerman, because I just don't think that, I don't know. I get Elizabeth vibes from Isolde. I feel like she followed her. She's read some of the stuff. Getty T is looking lovely. Oh my gosh, thank you, Pamela. My dirty secret is that I haven't sewn on the ends yet, and I also haven't fully blocked it yet. I did block the squares when they were done, but the rest of it is not yet blocked. But you know what? It's hot outside, and I needed a cool knitted garment to wear, and so we're going for it. And I know you guys won't tell. Thank you for keeping my secret. Yes, Musselburgh hat, love. They are really a fantastic pattern, and truly it's one of those things where for sometimes a simple hat pattern, if you're a beginner, you need to buy patterns for simple things, right? But sometimes I see a simple hat pattern and I think this maybe shouldn't cost $12, especially if it's like super, super simple and there are so many others like it. But the Musselburgh hat pattern is worth every single penny, if not even more. Like, the amount of value that you get out of one pattern is astounding. It's a hat that you could wear, that you could knit out of any gauge, any yarn, any needles. Such a good value. It's a must in every knitter's collection, in my opinion. It's a curriculum for kids handwriting without tears, curriculum for kids handwriting, especially for kids with fine motor issues. I think it tops out at 4th or 5th grade. I wonder if Elizabeth knew about handwriting without tears, like which one came first. I bet probably this is a reference to that. I'm guessing it might be a reference. I would believe it. Thank you for educating me about that. I was not familiar with handwriting without tears. Although, you know what? I don't think they really teach handwriting in school anymore. Do they still teach handwriting in school? Now it's all about computers, and handwriting is seen as no longer necessary, which is really sad, I think. I remember being in middle school and a group of girls I was friends with at least went through a phase where we were obsessed with our handwriting, and everybody had a pen and was writing letters over and over in their notebook, trying to get these perfect, round, cutesy letters. But I don't know if kids are still learning handwriting. They're definitely not learning script. I guess they must be learning handwriting if they're learning letters, but definitely not learning script. And less of a focus on writing with hands, more of a focus of typing. I know certainly there's not even really computer literacy training, because by the time I had middle schoolers in my classroom, for the most part, like, they didn't know how to copy and paste. I would say like Control C, because students were so familiar to working with tablets and phones and less experience with working with computers. So that was kind of interesting. I don't know if it was just the school where I taught and the district where I taught, or if that's just more of a universal thing. Mel says handwriting is still taught, but not every place teach cursive. That makes sense. You have to teach kids how to write in block letters, but not cursive is sad. I write in cursive. I like writing in cursive. I think it makes things go a little faster. Charlotte Stone recently showed the inside of her socks she'd been wearing. She said she hates weaving an end, so she doesn't. I felt so seen. Especially in socks, I feel like that's such a move, because even if it's superwash, maybe not all superwash yarn, but I feel like all the socks that I've knit have felted just a tiny little bit, especially in the places where they rub a lot. And so if you've got little tails inside of your socks and you're going to be wearing them inside your boots, I feel like the little tails have just kind of felt themselves in where they belong anyway. So I love Charlotte Stone's patterns. If you all aren't familiar, Charlotte Stone designs these incredible colorwork sock patterns. And I think that most of her designs have like kind of a formula to them. It's usually one image and it's repeated all over the sock. So imagine lots of little mushrooms or lots of little frogs or lots of little apples. And they are so sweet and adorable, and they look really fun to knit. And probably very warm too, because you have the multiple layers of yarn. They smell like really squishy and warm to wear. I have not yet knit colorwork socks, but I feel like if I were to get into it, she might be one of the first patterns I try, just because they're so adorable. I also feel like if I was going to like gift knit socks, that's a really good gift knit, because it just makes such an impact, and you can pick one that's like themed to the thing the person likes. But I have to love you a lot to make you socks. That's a big gift. I sub, and yes, apps have ruined computer literacy. Isn't it shocking? Like, I understand that I went to school during a different era than students today are going to school, but we had whole classes dedicated to computer skills with like keyboard shortcuts and things like that. And so it felt really wild for me when I realized that my students like didn't know how to copy and paste and didn't know like keyboard shortcuts, or even didn't know how to right click on something to reveal a menu they could navigate. I don't know, like when is that class of students going to learn those computer skills? Because like by the time you go to college, I feel like you need to know those things. It's kind of an interesting phenomenon. I don't know if you weren't in a classroom, if you're not a teacher or a sub or a para, I'm not sure if you would be aware how much computer skills are lacking today. Kind of wild, an unexpected twist, because you think kids are like, young people are so tech savvy. Like even my almost 2-year-old like can navigate. He doesn't use phones or anything, but he can pick up my phone and know how to touch the screen without ever having been taught, without having exposure to or using a phone, without knowing how to read or anything like that. Like he has an intuition about it. I don't know if that's credit to the technology creators for making something that's so intuitive to interact with. Um, I don't know. It's very interesting how intuitive apps and like touch screens are. Karen says students that come into my workplace don't know how to use books, i.e., use a table of contents, look at the index. That's so true. Oh man, I you know I feel for those kids though, because it's such a wonderful skill to be able to go and utilize an index table of contents, like go to a library and utilize librarian, utilize the resources in the library to learn new things, and not knowing how to navigate the index and table of contents of books can really hold you back from learning new things. Like the internet is great, but there's some information that's only in books. Like there are a few classes I've taught on like the history of knitting, wartime history of knitting, stuff like that. And in order to research for those classes, I had to go to the New York Public Library, to the stacks, and request materials that you're not able to bring out of the building and are not available online. And I was able to look up the names of the books and request them from the librarians. And then they like, in the New York Public Library's Bryant Park branch on 42nd Street, there's the main building, the Schwarzman building. They've actually built stacks deep under Bryant Park, and they have a book train. So you go to the librarian, you request the books you need, and then the book train goes underground where the books are picked up for you, put into the train, and sent back up into the reading room. But I would have never had access to the information that I needed to learn and build those classes if I wasn't able to navigate a library, navigate books, because none of that information is online anymore. It's just basically in these out of print books that you can only get sitting in a reading room in a library that a book train goes and gets the books for you for. But I don't blame the young people, by the way. I think that there's a tendency to blame young people for things that they aren't able to do. Like curriculums are not prioritizing this. If you don't learn how to use an index and a table of contents in school, when are you expected to learn it? And it's something that schools have not prioritized teaching. So how are young people supposed to know it? Not to like shake our fists and grumble at young people. I generally think young people are like pretty awesome, and I feel like we've let them down by just removing these types of lessons from the curriculum. There's lots of things that we've removed from teaching in school that young people I think would really benefit from learning. It's not their fault that they don't know it. We're just not teaching it to them. So, that's sad. Okay, Pamela says, and we can all share if we have ideas, but Pamela says, I need recommendations for circular colorwork yoke sweater. Looking for off the beaten path designers. Anyone here got Rex? Is Jennifer Steingass on your radar? Her name is Knit Love Wool. And sometimes Jennifer Steingass, sometimes Knit Love Wool. I have knit like 6 or 7 of her colorwork yoke patterns. I don't think I would call her fully off the beaten path. I think her sweaters are pretty well known, but I've had an excellent experience with all of them. I think that they're really pretty, really fun to knit. Yeah, good experience knitting her patterns. I would recommend them. So if she's not on your radar, I would check her out. Jennifer Steingass. If she is on your radar, I'll try and think of some more off the beaten path ideas. I finished a Stephen West sock, and no way I'm weaving in all that braid, all the ends. That will braid the ends. Alec, I don't blame you. I think that the good news about knitted socks is I don't think anyone is going to stop you and look inside to check for your ends. We won't tell. We won't tell that the ends aren't woven in. And that's one nice thing about knitting. Like, sometimes when people I've taught to knit will be like, oh my gosh, I made a mistake, everyone will know. I'm like, no one will know. And no one is going to stop you on the street and be like, let me see your sweater. Did you weave in the ends? Let me see your socks. Did you make a mistake near the left pinky toe? No one will know. No one will see. No one is asking, which is kind of a relief to think about sometimes. Oh man, when you're talking and knitting, did I make the decrease? I did. I'm proud of myself. I made the decrease where I was supposed to, even when I was talking. It's a satisfying feeling. Mel is saying that many computer skills you didn't learn in school, you learned later. That's fair. I feel like I learned how to type later because my dad had told me, like, life will just be easier if you know how to type without looking at the keyboard. And that was true for me. Learning how to type without looking at the keyboard was very helpful for me. And later on, it became a fun game I would play with my students. Like, I would bet them that I could type faster than them, and they would be really shocked by how quickly I could type. So it came in handy both for practical reasons, like writing up papers in college and writing emails and stuff I can do pretty quickly when I'm typing. But it also comes in handy to impress my students. So equally important reasons. Okay, Toby is shouting out Knit Pearl Girl for Pamela. I think for circular yoke pattern recommendations, the Nova sweater is a quick knit. That's a good recommendation. Karen, the book train is so cool. Yes, the book train is so cool. My understanding, and there are a lot of really cool videos on the New York Public Library's main branch online, but this was also an issue at Columbia's campus. Like, when you think of New York City, you had very limited real estate. When you have a physical space for a library and you run out of room for the books, you can't build sideways, you can't build an addition on the building, you don't have any more space to build, so you have to find new spaces to build. And so with Columbia, they had to move the books the books were getting too heavy and the library was sinking down into the ground, basically. The space underneath the building was hollow. There's tunnels under the campus. So the building was sinking, and so they moved all the books down to another building south of the main building that was the original library. They moved it to a new library to prevent the weight of the books from sinking that building down into the ground. My understanding with the Bryant Park one is that they built the stacks down under Bryant Park. And there are some spots in Bryant Park as you're walking, and if you know where to look, that you can find in the ground escape hatches in case of emergency, so folks can escape from those stacks that are under the ground, under the park. But yeah, the book train is so sweet. I love the whole concept of it. Karen, agreed. People have been decrying younger generations since ancient Greece. We have to help train everyone. Yeah, people don't talk enough about how much young people are minimized in every way. I get on my soapbox about, listen, I taught middle schoolers for a really long time. I taught middle school for 6 years. That's the amount of time. And then I moved on to high school. But I think one thing, especially about that age group, and we all were that age once. It's easy to put it out of your mind, I suppose. But all of their feelings are valid. All of their experiences are valid. So many of my students would experience invalidation from older people in their life. Like, oh, like, you're not really upset. Like, you don't know what real upset is. Like, you don't have real stress. You don't have to pay bills. You don't know. And it made me feel really sad for my students because the things they were experiencing were all valid. They were upset. That was real upset. It's not fair to minimize it by saying, well, my stress is more than yours. We can't qualify things that way. Arguably, the stresses that my students experienced, at that age were likely unprecedented upset. When you're a young person, you don't have lots of experience to look back on and say, oh man, like, I've been through upset before and I know it's going to be okay. Like, if you're experiencing the most dramatic upset you've ever experienced in your life with no precedent, of course it's going to feel really extreme. So yeah, I always felt sad for students who felt invalidated by the adults in their life because their experience was just as real as any adult's experience. We talk about ageism a lot when it comes to older folks, and that's very real too. But I think that there can be some ageism against young people too, like middle school age. That makes me feel really sad. And then they're just left lost because it's like, okay, well, it's your word against an adult's word. Who's everybody going to believe? The adult. It's unfair. There's nothing they can do about it until they get older, but then you put it out of your head and you become one of those adults. But Karen, I'm glad you're not one of those adults. When I was in high school, we had a library class where we had to learn the Dewey Decimal System enough to find several books, including from the reference room. That is awesome, and I will tell you that just like last week, I went to my local library and I was like, oh, I wonder if they have knitting books here. But my toddler was with me, and we were running out of time before he was done. And so I was like, I feel like the knitting books are like 740 something. They are 740 something. I found my way right to the correct aisle, just from memory. Dewey Decimal System will serve you so well. It's a good thing to know. Hey, Alec. I think that was in response to the sock ends weaving in. Oh my gosh, Karen, the Secret Society of Unwoven Ends. I think maybe all of knitterdom, all knitters, a secret society of unwoven ends. We thought we were just a secret society of knitting, but we're actually a secret society of unwoven and ends. Perhaps I'm part of the executive board. I'm like the vice president of Unwoven and Ends some days. Okay, it sounds like Pamela hasn't heard of Jennifer Steingast, so definitely check her out. Pamela says, I would hate to be young at this moment in time. I would hate for everything I did to possibly be online for all to see. No one is allowed to make mistakes nowadays. It's so true, and oh man, I could talk about that forever. It has to be a paralyzing feeling, because you never know if what you're doing or saying will be used against you in the future, will be laughed at by others. And I think a piece that we may not always think about is my students would come in on Monday morning like angry at their best friend over something that happened online over the weekend. Or like, you'd come in on a Wednesday for an 8 a.m. class and something had happened online the night before and everyone was in a tizzy about it. Like the online element happens at home, away from school, separate from everyone. But then you have to like come in and sit in the classroom physically with everyone the next day. And all that stuff and all this stuff, that the drama that had played out online the night before, comes into real life. Oof. When I was the internet was around when I was in school. It was a very different world than it is today. But I don't think that we had that kind of continuity where like we were with our friends at school and then we just came home and stayed connected online, but in a different way, and then just came back in the next day. It's like everyone's constantly connected, and all these storylines and dramas can play out, at home at night. There's no end, there's no escape from it if you're in it. Karen says, I'm glad I made it out of high school and university without social media being so important. I hear you on that. I feel like Facebook was kind of a thing when I was in college, and Twitter maybe. It just felt a lot different than it does today. It was more like, sometimes I'd look back at my old tweets. I was just like, wow, I love oatmeal. Like, it was just like a stream of consciousness of thoughts I was thinking, but it didn't feel that serious. Maybe that was just me tweeting. Ooh, Dawn knitted a Jennifer Steingast pattern called Alden and really enjoyed it. Yeah, that one I can't think of what that one looks like. You're right, it must be a less popular one. I think the ones I've knitted have all been fairly popular. But one nice thing about a designer like Jen Steingast, it was Pamela, I think, asking for colorwork yoke recommendations from lesser known designers. And I will say that Jen Steingast, pretty much all she does is colorwork yoke sweaters. And I think sometimes that works really well. Like Jen Steingast, colorwork yoke sweaters, I associate the two. I think of someone like Jamie Lomax as like a colorwork accessory queen. Like she does like doodle stitching as her invention. And when you have a designer and they just do this one trope really, really well, they can just knock out excellent versions over and over again because that's their wheelhouse. So Jen Steingast, she like cracked the code on colorwork yoke sweaters, and I would feel confident recommending any of her patterns to someone looking for a colorwork yoke sweater because I know she's just mastered it. Like she cranks them out, she knows exactly what she's doing, and all her patterns I feel pretty confident recommending, even though, I've knit a lot of them, but even the ones I haven't knit, I've knit enough of her stuff to know she knows what she's doing when it comes to colorwork sweaters. Bye, Knit a Wow. I'm so glad you were here. And Handwriting Without Tears, thank you for the recommendation, and I will keep it in mind for when my son starts writing. Karen says, what about Rachel Rachel Ilsley. She's not quite off the beaten path, but amazing work. Sounds familiar. I don't know any of her patterns off the top of my head. I've never knit one of her patterns before, but I will check it out. Is a good recommendation. Mel says, I think people are still learning how to safely use social media, and I don't think it's good to just say kids shouldn't have access. Sure, having everyone know a double and turn it to bullying is bad, but I wouldn't have felt so unsafe and isolated if I had it. It's a really good point, Mel. So the idea is like people get really scared of kids having access to social media, and so they say, well, they shouldn't have it. But one really great thing about social media is it helps connect us to people who we can feel connected to and have things in common with, even if they are not physically close to us. Like we can create community online that we may not be able to have physically in real life. And that's really, really valuable, especially for kids who feel like they don't have a community in their school or in their town. They can find their community online. And it's very affirming and can help to counter a feeling of isolation as a young person. So I agree with you there. Like, I think the question that everyone's struggling with is how, like, how do we create safe access to social media for young people to like protect them from the bad parts, but give them access to the good parts? It's like an impossible question. It's like the Wild West. We don't have answers yet. And I have heard about more people kind of having like a no cell phones before 13, no cell phones before high school kind of policy. I've heard some people doing like a family cell phone that everyone shares. And if a kid is going out with friends, they bring the family cell phone, that kind of thing. But I don't know. Hopefully the discourse continues. It's really, really important. I wish there was more clear answers. Especially now that I'm a mom, it's like, oh my gosh, how do you keep kids safe and healthy when there can be such a downside to all of the social media and the just access to the internet? I don't know the answer, but I hear you on having community online. It's really powerful. I mean, right here, right now, we have community online. So it is an important and valuable thing. Oh, Pamela found a Jennifer Stein guest pattern that she likes. Yeah, Sigrun, beautiful. And Karen is saying Rachel Ilsley is also Unwind Knitwear, and also Anna Johanna has some nice color work. Yeah, I've seen some Anna Johanna stuff, never knit her stuff before. But these are all designers' names who are worth checking out, and having a little Ravelry surf and seeing what they've got and what speaks to you. My Ravelry favorites is just like unknittable in a lifetime. I have so many favorited patterns. But I think all of those names pop up on there. I want to make sure I have enough time to tell you about this because I'm so excited about it. Okay. So I teased Elizabeth Zimmerman. This is a book that was already in my collection. But as I mentioned, I've been to the library. And so these were both at my local library, the Knitter's Almanac, and Knitter's Workshop, the DVDs, which I know Elizabeth Zimmerman is famous for her writing, but she also had like a PBS show. She had a number of television specials. And so I was like, oh yes, I think I need to spend some time knitting with Elizabeth. So I have this. I did watch a little bit. I had to order a DVD player, USB insert for my computer because we don't have a DVD player. So I started watching this, but it is hard to find time to sit down and watch. And I will admit, my husband is very good, but when we watch TV at night, he was not super excited about watching Elizabeth Zimmerman's knitting workshop. So I'm going to have to save this one to watch when I'm alone. I'm not going to watch this one with my husband. I'm not going to force him. That's okay. He doesn't have to. I get it. But Knitter's Almanac, it kind of bills itself as like an annual guide to knitting. Like this is a year of knits. But it's really more retrospective than that. Like every month, Elizabeth's like, here's what I knit this month. It's really like a Whip Wednesday, Elizabeth Zimmerman edition. So she starts off strong. She's like, January, knit an Aran sweater. And then she knits a pie shawl and she knits some Christmas accessories in July. So it's almost a knitting diary as much as it is a pattern book. very fun to read. I'm still making my way through it, but I did kind of scan through all the projects. And then my 2 orders that came in this week. The Opinionated Knitter. Elizabeth Zimmerman had a series of newsletters that she sent out. And they came with patterns and knitting instructions, but like I said, they weren't like fully written patterns. They were kind of more like recipes, and they were not they were not like a recipe today. It was more like jogging with a friend while they kind of tell you a recipe, like, yeah, like a couple of eggs and some flour, and like make it look like the consistency of like a thick pudding, and then like put it and bake it for like 350 at like 25 minutes. Like that's the energy of her patterns. I had never read any of her newsletters before, but what I didn't know before I got this book is there are all of these hand-drawn illustrations throughout. So any pattern that has cabling or schematics is going to have Elizabeth's hand-drawn notes. Like, this is incredible. And I think this is typewritten. Like, I feel so connected to Elizabeth Zimmerman through these pages. It's so cool. So the end papers are this pattern. I actually think this is a Tomton jacket. The Tomton jacket has the peak hood. But the project that I'm knitting now is this one, which I don't know if any of you recognize. It is the baby surprise jacket. As soon as I saw the baby surprise jacket, I was like, done. I have a baby. I'm making a surprise. And I had some yarn left over from this project. So a few weeks ago, I finished the, oh my gosh, it's called The Step-by-Step Sweater by Florence. She's huge on YouTube. Everyone's knit this sweater. And whenever I talk about beginner-friendly sweaters or folks asking me about what sweater they should knit for their first sweater, Florence's Step-by-Step Sweater comes up in the comments. And I really want to recommend it to people, but I never knit it myself. So I thought, you know what, let me go ahead and knit it so that I feel good about recommending it to people and saying, yes, I've actually made it. With my Step-by-Step Sweater, I went ahead, I watched her video. I bought one of the recommended yarns that she said. Like, I really wanted to have the experience of like a brand new knitter following her advice. Knit this up. It is a nice oversized simple raglan. You should knit it. It's great. No problem. If you're a beginner, I think it's a great place to start. She does a good job explaining everything in the video. It's very comprehensive. I feel confident recommending this to beginners. It's a great sweater. So I knit that. But now that I've had a child, I've become obsessed with matching sweaters, and I did have enough of the yarn left over. I knit this out of Drops Nepal. That was one of the yarns she recommended. So I'm making a baby surprise jacket with the extra. So here is how much I've got going, not very much. But the thing about this sweater is you knit it completely flat, garter stitch, squishy, warm, cozy. And then at the end, you take this one kind of misshapen piece and you fold it up like origami. You seam 2 seams in the top of the shoulders, and it's a sweater. And I cannot describe it as well as I can show you. So I have a little video here. It's someone else. Let me see. Is it here? Can we see? Okay. So this is someone's YouTube video. I'll go ahead and add the link to this later in the description. So she's knit this whole, that's the whole sweater. She's knit the whole thing. It's kind of like a rectangle with flaps. And then boom, 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 boom. She folds it up. And that's a sweater. It already has the buttonholes. All she has to do is sew on the buttons. Isn't that crazy? I'm so impressed. Like, Elizabeth just came up with this. She went to Germany. She saw these like baby hats, like with a little peak at the back. And she was like, what if I... And then she played around and made the baby surprise jacket. A genius. A knitting genius. Like, I made this video about how knitting patterns have gotten worse in quality over time. People have a lot of feelings about it. But like, nobody today is making baby surprise jacket style patterns. Come on. Like, that is like architectural genius knitting. That's thinking in a new way about knitting patterns. I'm so impressed. You know, Modern knitwear designers could never. Maybe Isolde could. I'm running back through the comments here. Oh my gosh, Toby has Elizabeth Zimmerman on VHS. That's awesome. I would love to. This is this DVD is from the library. You can purchase all of these Elizabeth Zimmerman books and all of the DVDs on Schoolhouse Press. It's Google Schoolhouse Press. It might be schoolhousepress.com, but you can get them all from their website. Meg Swanson, Elizabeth's daughter, is still running the whole thing, and you can purchase them for download. So you don't have to, if you don't have a DVD player like me, you don't have to use DVDs. I just happen to get this in my library, but you can download them for less than the DVDs would cost, and you can watch them and have the MP3 file. It's not an MP3. The video files available to use on your computer and watch indefinitely. So you can get them from Schoolhouse Press if you're interested. Pamela says, I've been trying to find the Knitter's Almanac for years. Check your library. That's where mine was. I mean, I have to give it back. But you can buy them on Schoolhouse Press, I think. Molly, yes. So not just were there once knitting DVDs, like this isn't just a DVD. This was a whole television show. Think like Julia Child cooking television, but for knitting. I think it was on PBS. Yep, 6-hour PBS TV series. And Elizabeth Zimmerman is like absolutely legendary. She is not to be understated. Cannot understate how legendary Elizabeth Zimmerman is. Mel says, I really want the DVDs. I haven't gotten them yet. I found a lot of Lucy Neat Bee DVDs on eBay. The Knitter's Almanac is one of my favorite books. It's like a journal of knitting for a year. Right? I bought this thinking it was just like more prescriptive. And I should have known better. I know Elizabeth, she would never be prescriptive. It's not prescriptive. It's more retrospective. It's like a year in a knitter's life. And it's funny because that content is still so popular today. Like everything I knit this year, everybody's making those videos in January. I watched so many everything I knit this year videos. They're really fun. It's fun to see what other people knit in a year. And if you're curious what someone knit in a year in 1973, you can read this book. And Elizabeth is so funny. I love her writing. The baby surprise is so fun. The adult surprise is my nemesis sweater. I'll beat it one day, but no, don't tell me that. I was thinking of making one. I need to know why. I have to admit that I was a little bit off-put because you know how Elizabeth Zimmerman is. She basically says, okay, baby surprise jacket, you cast on 160 stitches. She was like, this is how many inches it was when I used, like fingering weight yarn. Figure it out. So I am using Aran weight yarn for this to make the size sweater that I want. But it wasn't the baby surprise. I think it might have been the Tomton. She was like, if you knitted in bulky weight, it could fit a small adult. How big is a small adult? Like, I think I'm a medium to large size adult. I don't think that the bulky weight adult Tomton would fit me. So I am a little bit worried about just like the fitting of it. Just based on those measurements. I don't know if that's why it was the nemesis. I'm curious to hear why, because I kind of do want to make one for myself. They're cute. They're so cute. Reminds me of the Granny Cardi crochet patterns, the way that it folds. I am not familiar. I'm going to have to look into these granny crochet cardigans. Now that I'm a granny square girl, maybe I can make one. Jennifer Beal is incredibly talented and inventive. Ooh, okay. I'm writing this down. Jennifer. That sounds so familiar. Does she also write novels? Am I making this up? Pamela, the baby surprise jacket is my nemesis. Now, you guys are scaring me. I think it'll be fine. I need to know more. When Ravelry was new, I heard about Elizabeth Zimmerman. I went and bought a pattern and DVD and was so lost. I've since learned to love her. Okay. It's super late here in Scotland. I'm off to bed. Have a lovely time chatting about knitting and crafting things. Pamela, I didn't realize you were coming from Scotland. Have a wonderful night. I'm so glad you were here to talk with us tonight, and I hope you got some good color work sweater recommendations. Mel says there's a book about the adult surprise jacket written by other people that has gotten me closer, but mostly her knitting key formula isn't perfectly accurate, and I also carry a lot of weight. Okay, Mel, that was what I was worried about. I do think that just, you know what? The plus size knitting problem, like we have it today, and we still talk about how pattern grading isn't perfect for bigger sizes, and I mean, larger sizes in many patterns are not even available, but when they are available, they're not always graded properly. And like, just to give like a very quick brief, you know, like when a knitting designer makes their pattern and they grade it up to different sizes, it's not as simple as just like +2 inches, +2 inches, +2 inches, because not every part of the sweater needs to be graded in the same proportion. So, for example, right, um, the neckline of a sweater doesn't need to get larger at the same rate as the hip of the sweater needs to get larger. Because if that were the case, a bigger busted sweater would have a neckline that came and fell off the shoulders, right? Like we don't need the neckline to be that much larger proportionally, the way that we need a bust and hip to grow larger proportionally to fit different sized bodies. And not every knitwear designer is aware of or on top of that. Like sometimes they just like click like add one, add one, add one to all the numbers all the way down. And they're like, great, I graded it up to a 69-inch bust. But then you go to knit it and it like clearly doesn't fit right because they weren't thinking in the right way about pattern grading. It's been an issue always. It's an important thing to talk about and think about. Toby says, might I suggest the next rabbit hole to fall down is Nancy Bush folk knitting and Estonian lace? You might suggest that. That might be my rabbit hole this week. Thank you, Toby. I like that suggestion. TL Yarn Crafts have this crochet cardigan for free. Wait, I know TL Yarn Crafts. I follow them. Okay, crochet cardigan. TL Yarn Crafts. I will look into that. I appreciate that. Molly says, before the internet was what it is today, knit designers had more time to explore and experiment. The internet has made knitting and crochet and patterns much faster and even competitive. Well, competitive, yes. And hustle culture, right? It's like everyone's trying to make, everyone's trying to make a living is true, but like also the drive to monetize the hobby can make you feel like you have to produce more and more and more and produce things that are accessible to beginners and all levels so that you can sell your products. There's pros and cons. I get it, I don't think it's all bad, but if you're putting out subpar products in order to try and race them out, then it can be a bad thing. Oh my goodness. Wait, Salma and Toby, I see your whip project, your whip photos. Before 9, I want to show them. Let me see if I can pop these in here. All right, I'm going to bring these onto my computer. Okay. Sorry, folks, forgive me for a second. I'm just getting our whip photos so that I can show them before the end of the night. Oh my gosh, Toby, your sweater is so gorgeous. I can't wait to show this to everyone. Your lace is also incredible. Oh my goodness. Where are you? What a beautiful setting. Oh my goodness. Selma. Okay. I know that you guys probably shared details about these in the Google form, but maybe you just want to drop, if you sent me a photo, if you just want to drop the details in the chat, I think it will be easier for me to see. Okay. It popped up right away. I'm going to try and resize this so we can all see it. Sorry guys, this is the first time I'm doing this live, so hopefully we can do it pretty seamlessly. Okay, this is Salma's baby sweater. That's where you live, Toby? Beautiful. All right, maybe I can pull up the form here. No. Okay. This is Salma's whip. If you see this and you're able to type in what it is if you're still here, I would love to share. Otherwise, it looks like a really, really cute, I think, child sweater. I love this color. All right, we'll see if the details come through. And here come Toby's sweaters. Wait until you see this setting, guys. Okay, this is Toby. Hi, Toby. Look at this sweater, but also look at this setting. Isn't this gorgeous? I love the colors you chose. I'm gonna try and make this smaller. Where did it go? Okay. I had a lot to say about kids not being able to use computers, and here I am, eating my words. Okay, cool. I think we can all see it now. Look at Toby's sweater. This is beautiful. Okay, I said, Toby, this is gorgeous, and you said, this is where I live. Beautiful. I love the colors. The sweater, Toby says the sweater is the Hemsedal sweater from Anne's Norwegian Knitting, and the shawl is my go-to for chemo shawls. Okay, beautiful, and I think that's the perfect segue to show the shawl. Okay, here we go. I should pop them on the screen. Look at this shawl, everybody. I have to make this big. Look at these details. Absolutely gorgeous. I love the color as well. Yeah, Anne is saying that, I'm just going to pop the sweaters up one more time. Anne is saying, pretty color work. Oops, not this one. There we go. Anne is saying that it looks like good thick yarn too. Oh my gosh, is this like Icelandic wool? Because I feel like these sweaters just wind up being basically weatherproof. Like you don't need a coat. You can just go out in any weather and be solid in a sweater like this. Toby, thank you for sharing your projects. These are so beautiful. Absolutely lovely. Everybody's oohing and eyeing in the chat. I really appreciate you sharing your work. This is incredible. Oh, Karen, I see your picture just came through. Ooh. All right, I can't wait to show you this, everybody. This is Karen's, is this your whip? Look at this cool color work. I like the neon green and the gray. It also looks like a very soothing pattern to knit. Like you can get into a rhythm really, really easily. Karen, you're still here. Karen, if you could just drop the details of what you were knitting in the chat, it'll be easier for me to see in the Google form. I'm learning in real time that it's easier for me to see the details in the chat. There's a little bit of a delay here and a little bit of a lag. I'm just going to say that I'm seeing Toby updating us on the wool for the sweater. So if you're interested in recreating it, she already dropped the pattern information, the pattern details, and the yarn is Hilsvag Norwegian wool, and you can get it in the US at SU Fibers. And if you all have never knit with like Icelandic wool, Norwegian wool, you're in for a treat and a very warm sweater. A very warm sweater. I made one for my brother, and we talk about how it's like basically like windproof. It's not waterproof, but it feels waterproof. Like water almost kind of wants to bead off. It's so nice to wear. All right, I see the comments catching up to me here. That this is Karen's whip. It is a Mountain Montana cowl with some hand spun, and the green is from Junction Fiber Mill. Junction Fiber Mill was not like, it was a little bit on my radar, but not super on my radar. But in the past couple videos that I've been talking about sustainable yarn brands and like local American yarn brands, Junction has come up a lot. And I believe that they're going to be at Rhinebeck this year, so I'm definitely checking them out. I'm so excited to try their yarn for the first time. They have some really beautiful colors, oh my goodness. And the hand spun, wait a second, can we zoom in on this for a second? How even is this hand spun? What? That's incredible. Your hand spun looks truly like store-bought yarn. I hope that you receive that as a compliment. I mean it as truly a compliment. Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm too excited about your projects. I'm decreasing on the wrong side row. Gotta pay more attention here. I'm looking at the project photos instead of focusing on my project. This hand spun is really, really fantastic. And this looks like pretty thick. Is this fingering weight? Anne says, oh, okay, I have to put the picture. Can I do it like this? Oh, there we go. Anne says, wow, is that a fade or is that the lighting? It's a very cool pattern. It is a very cool pattern. Karen says, I would recommend Junction. The yarn is really lovely. I'll check one just to see if anybody else has a picture here. All right. And with that, everybody, it is 9 Eastern time. And out of respect for your time, I'm going to call it a night, call it a knit night. But it was so much fun to knit with you all. Wow, this was really, really nice. I appreciate you all being here. And to those of you who participated in the chat and sent through pictures, it was really, really fun to see your projects. I really appreciate you sharing them and talking about Elizabeth Zimmerman and the youth and typing and computers. It was nice to have a little knit night together. And you know, I haven't made like a formal announcement, but maybe we'll do this again next week. Maybe we'll make this a regular thing. I've been having a lot of fun with it, so it's been good to get to know you all. Let me know. Let me know if you want it to become a more regular thing. I should have a new kind of standard YouTube video dropping this Saturday morning. Hopefully, we'll see if it goes live on time, and hopefully I'll see you in the comments over there too. Thanks, Mel. Oh my gosh. Karen says it's been so fun. Toby says thanks for hosting. Mel, Alec, thank you guys all for being here. Have a wonderful night, and hopefully I'll see you all again soon here. All right, bye everybody.